5:31 PI.
Remember some people together. Talofa lava malolele warm Pacific greetings. Well, big changes are coming. For mobile phones across Aotearoa, the 3G network is being switched off as we fully move to a faster 4G, 5G services. For most people, that's good news. Better speed, more reliable connections, but there's a catch. Now, you're saying, what catch? Some devices may not be able to make emergency calls 111, even if they can send a text or use data. Spark has also highlighted around 300 high-risk devices, most older or second-hand phones, including some gifted or parallel imported devices that ain't currently set up for Aotearoa networks. That's why the message is simple. Check your phone. Check. Make sure it can call 111. But to explain all of this in plain language, he's here to tell us what us as listeners should do, as joined by the man himself, Paul Brislen, Chief Executive Officer of the New Zealand Telecommunications Forum. Paul, kia ora, and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Chief Executive Officer. That's a bit much, isn't it? What can you do?
What can you do, Paul? That's exactly what we're here for. Well, Paul, let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
For our listeners who haven't heard of this yet, because it's still quite fresh in the community, can you tell us, can you explain what the actual 3G shutdown really means?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll give it a go anyway. You tell me if it makes sense. So, the G just refers to generation. You remember, if you're old like me, you remember the very first cell phones that came out, first generation. They were, you could make voice calls and nothing else. And then Vodafone came along with the second generation phones. They were able to do text messages as well as voice. We all had Nokia phones with the covers that you put on them. 3G was introduced when the iPhone launched. So we're talking about all those years ago now, 2011, I think it was. And it was able to do a little bit of data, but mostly it was just all about voice. And we've moved on since then. We introduced 4G, we introduced 5G. We're up to that now. So the older networks, eventually they just become very expensive to run. They don't really do as much as you would hope that they would do. So it's time to start switching them off. So the first generation stuff disappeared years ago. 2G's been largely switched off now. 3G, that's next. So we'll be switching that off. And by April, all three of the network operators will switch it off. So if your phone relies on 3G, you've got to make some decisions about what you want to do from there. How's that?
That sounds pretty good, because that's where my next question comes in. But why are the networks like Spark, One New Zealand, 2 Degrees are switching off the 3G now?
Yeah, it's happening all around the world. And basically what's happened is the companies that make the equipment that we use to run the networks have said, that's it, we're not supporting this anymore. The software won't be updated, the hardware is getting harder to find. It's costing you money to run. We can use the radio frequencies that the 3G network uses to run 4G and 5G networks. So why don't you just start using, upgrading your networks to offer these faster speeds and a better service? So that's what the network operators are doing. They agreed a few years ago that they would all work together to tell everybody about what was happening. That's what I've been doing this last 12 months, getting out there as much as possible, telling all the groups that need to know that we're switching it off. And now they're finally doing it. So 2 Degrees has switched it off. One New Zealand, used to be Vodafone, now it's One New Zealand. They're in the throes of doing it right now. And Spark will have it all switched off by end of March, beginning of April.
Now that you answered that, when it is happening, but how quickly might people get to notice any difference on their phones?
Well, hopefully straight away, because what the network operators have been doing is they haven't been waiting to switch it off and then they'll see, about improving the coverage for the other stuff. They've been doing it in the background. So there's been a lot of equipment already put in for 4G all over New Zealand. They've been replacing a lot of the 3G equipment with 4G already. So already what should be happening is you probably won't notice it, but if you look at the top corner of your phone, you'll see which network you're connected to. And more often you'll see 4G rather than 3G. And in fact, because your phone is pretty smart, it latches onto the strongest network that it can find, and it'll start connecting to 4G and 5G in the cities much more often already. So hopefully you've already seen this happening, and you'll be thinking, well, I haven't seen 3G on my phone for a while. If you're like me and you look at your phone all the time. I haven't seen 3G for a while. It's all
Mm.
sort of already coming off. That's great, and you shouldn't notice the switch over. It's not like your phone will beep and say that's it, 3G's done. It'll just happen naturally in the background, and you'll be able to get the faster speeds and carry on doing what you're doing.
So silently but deadly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, my friend. So most of it will be replaced with 4G, which is for a number of different reasons. 5G is only really good in the cities, in the built-up areas. So most of the places you'll see 4G, but we've been upgrading both the networks for the last couple of years, really. It's been quite a long project. So that's
I
coming
bet.
to a head now. Yeah.
I bet it took a lot of work in there. The next question is, but who will be most affected? Is it mainly people with older phones or other devices that we should think about?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So most all the phones out there today use 3G, right? It's think of it as being like the road. We're building a big motorway next to the old road, but while the old road's still open, it's still available. So people's phones are still using it today. So there's plenty of people using 3G right this minute. Um, uh, the problem areas are for the people whose phones will only use 3G and can't see the 4G or 5G networks. So
Hmm.
those tend to be much older phones. If it's an iPhone from before, I think iPhone 7s onwards all use 4G and 5G. But if it's earlier than that, it might have issues. Some of the older Galaxy phones, the Samsung phones, and as One New Zealand, as Spark put out recently, there's a whole raft of phones that are being parallel imported. They may or may not operate properly in the New Zealand market. We just don't know. So they're being very cautious about that at the moment and warning people. But there's an easy way to test, easy free way to test. What you do is you send a text message to 550 and it's free. And you just type in 3G, send that off to 550, and you'll get a report back about your particular phone. And it'll tell you whether or not your phone's good. It'll either say, you're sweet, nothing to worry about, or your phone won't work at all, you've got to do something, or it might say you need to change the settings in your phone to make it work. And we really encourage people to do that, right? So if it says check the settings, there are a couple of videos from Consumer New Zealand about how to do that. It's not too scary. It's all right. You'll be okay. Go on into the settings, change it so that it'll make calls on 4G, and you'll be away.
Thank you for that. That's amazing. Now, here's an important one for our listeners too, Paul. We've seen reports about phones that can make calls and use data, but cannot make emergency call. How
Yeah.
big of a risk is that, and why does it happen?
Well, it's because of the way emergency calls are handled. So to make sure that your emergency call always gets through as much as humanly possible, 111 calls will run on any network they can find. And this is really smart, right? So even if your phone says no network available, if there's
Right.
been an earthquake or something's happened, try making that call anyway because it will connect. It'll connect over Wi-Fi. It'll connect over 3G or 4G or 5G. But this switching mechanism, in what they've discovered in Australia, for instance, is that this switch where it jumps and it tries to find another network, if the phone's misconfigured, it'll if it's not set up properly, it will get stuck looking for a 3G network that's not there. And it won't make the call, won't make the 111 call. So this is a real problem, right? In Australia, they've had some real issues with it. We had a look at what's going on over there and said, okay, we want to be really careful about that here. Sometimes the phones are set up for another country. And if you bought it offshore, if you bought it in China or Indonesia or wherever you've been traveling, it might not be configured properly for the New Zealand market. So we're saying, have a look at your phone. If you've got any questions, go on into the store for your mobile operator and have a chat to them. But, have a close look at it and make sure it can make emergency calls. Spark, as you said at the start, Spark's just put out an alert saying there are a whole bunch of phones that they think won't be able to make 111 calls, but can still make normal phone calls even after the switchover. That's hugely worrying, right? Because you'd be thinking, well, my phone's fine, I can make a voice call, but it won't make an emergency call when you need it. So Spark is going to block those phones on the network. They just won't work at all on the Spark network. And hopefully that'll trigger people to go, oh, okay, I've got to do something about this.
Yes,
And either change the settings or get a new phone or do whatever,
that's right.
So yeah, power's in your hands. You've got to make a decision. But I'm really worried about people whose phones won't make emergency calls, because that's when you need to make a call, you've got to be able to make that call.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Because you already mentioned it, let's go on to our next question. This is what I really feel for, is the people in the rural areas that might face extra challenges. How will this change affect them, and what support is available for them?
Yeah, it's a good question, because in the cities we've got, I don't know, I've got 3 operators, we've all got multiple networks, I can connect constantly, there's no problem. The further you are from town, the more important your communications is, right? If you're remote and rural, you need
That's
to be
correct.
able to communicate. The good news is, for about a decade now, we've been running the rural mobile black spot program, which is about building cell phone towers in really remote areas that provide coverage, especially on the state highways, so that if you are in a remote area and your car breaks down or there's a crash or whatever, you'll be able to call for help. The good news is all of those towers now are all 4G, so we don't have to worry about them at all. There's very little 3G left out in rural New Zealand, largely because each tower has a little, think of it like a mushroom, right? The area it covers,
Right.
the umbrella of it, if you like, the network cell site. 3G is just not very large. The 4G technologies that we use are able to expand out to a much bigger area. So hopefully, rural New Zealand will be better off as a result of this. You should see more coverage in more places than you've had before for 4G, and as I said, in towns for 5G as well. But the real test is once the 3G network's gone, they'll still be not only putting in new towers and expanding the footprint of the network, but they will be adjusting the network science is it's a bit weird. So once the 3G is gone, they'll adjust, and there'll be some areas where you get more coverage than you used to, and other areas where it might not be as good, and they'll be adjusting once they see that in action in the real world, to make sure that hopefully everybody's got the sort of coverage we've got today.
Thank you for that, because we haven't forgotten the most important people in our lives, and we're talking about them as well, because we think highly of them, and it sometimes is hard to let go. Are there services or programs for our older generation or vulnerable customers to upgrade their phones?
Yes, yeah, we've been talking with Age Concern, who do a lot of work with the older communities.
Yes.
We've been talking with citizens advice bureaus, libraries. They all have materials to help folk who are stuck. There's a program with the libraries in particular where you can take your phone in. Probably somebody's
Oh, nice.
nephew will help you
Mhm.
out with the phone, so you can make the changes, or at least tell you what you need to do about it, if you need to change your phone. So there's a lot of support going on in there. If you've got any questions at all, or if your aunties and uncles are a bit concerned about it, don't really know what to do that test that we talked about, the 550 test, and see if they need to do something. But if you're really stuck and you're really worried about it, go on into whoever their provider is. If it's One or Spark or 2 Degrees, just head on into the shop and have a chat with them in there about whether your phone will work and what the alternatives are. Because for most people, it will just be about changing the settings. You won't need to buy a new device. You just change the settings on the one you've got, and hopefully most people will be taken care of quite easily.
Thank you, Paul. And finally, as something that just popped into my head, is there something that maybe could, will be also talk amongst your team, anything in the Pacific languages in terms of, translating all of this English is good, but some of them is it available in all different languages or just the one?
No. We've got about 10 or 12 languages now.
Fantastic.
So if I'll send you the link if you like, and we can share out the fact sheet we've got and the links to that if that's going to be useful.
That will be helpful.
We'll make that available. Yeah, it's on our website, which is a very exciting name, tcf.org.nz. You'll find it in there, but I'll send you the link so you can share that out, because the more people that know, the better off we are, I think. So there's a whole raft of languages in there.
That'd be nice.
Some helpful links to videos and things like that to help folk
I think
understand
because I think this could help, because if we look at back in previous years, it wasn't very helpful for many, especially for the elders. But it's good that to raise that question, that so when they do, okay. And finally, we're looking at the bigger picture now. What are the long-term benefits of moving off 3G?
Well, hopefully it'll free up that radio spectrum so that each of the providers can offer 4G in more places and 5G services. They're much faster. You're able to do a lot more with it. You can have more people using the same cell site at the same time. So customer demand for mobile's gone through the roof over the last sort of 20 years or so since I started looking at it. Everybody's got a mobile phone now. When it first came out, it was just yuppies and business people. Now you couldn't get by without your phone, right? Yeah. Do you remember those? The old brick.
Yeah, the old brick. They look like walkie-talkie.
Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the little aerial on the top. That's, since then we use it for everything, right? So it's really important people can connect when they need to. So shutting down 3G will help free up a lot of capacity for that. So I think it'll be a good thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Paul, thank you so much for walking our listeners through all of this. Well, whānau, the key message is simple. Check your phone now, especially if it's secondhand, gifted or older. Make sure it can call 111, but if it can't, reach out to your provider. As Paul mentioned, consider upgrading. Spark and other networks are already offering affordable options, so nobody has to be caught out. Moving away from 3G is a big step, but it's about keeping our community safe, connected, and ready for the future. Paul, before we wrap up, your final words.
If you've got any doubts, have a look at, send that text message, right? So text 3G to 550, and you can do it as often as you like and on as many phones as you like. And stay safe out there, people. Stay connected.
Paul, ngā mihi kia koe. Lovely to talk to you this afternoon, and have a pleasant week.
You too. Thanks so much.
Tō whāsui whā.